Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Diogenes, and I'd like to welcome once again, welcome all of you to our 11th edition of our series of our Solin English and other languages. Sorry, we are starting a little bit late because of some technical problems. No, this is common, unfortunately. And today we are going to have our third lecture, which is going to be delivered by Laura Miccoli. And she's a professor at UFMG, Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais. And she's going to be, Jocely uh, Rocha Lima, our colleague at WESB, is going to moderate this lecture. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Jocely, tell you all who she is, her resume, and then she's going to take over and moderate the lecture. Okay, so let me go here. Jocely, she She started teaching in her 20s while in college in a private language school. And before becoming a teacher at Wesby, she was also a public school English teacher. And during her first years in public higher education, she was also a private college English teacher. So, teaching English, that's what she knows. She holds a master's degree in letters from UFBA, having concentrated her studies in ELT and English phonology, and since then, now back in UFBA's doctoral program, Jocely is investigating the acquisition of English as a non-native language by young children. In this journey of being a teacher in Brazil, Bahia, Vitória da Conquista, for almost 3 decades, is when she has found herself, is where she has found herself. And in spite of the many difficulties in tough times now, it's a journey she doesn't regret being in. So let's welcome Jocely to moderate Laura's lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Diogenes. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to moderate this talk and for the opportunity to meet Laura, someone I hadn't had the opportunity to meet before, but someone that I like very much. I'm going to present Laura for you. And as she wishes, let's call her Laura, okay? Well, Laura started teaching in her 20s, like me, after a training course in a private language institute. After 7 years in the profession, she went for an MA in TESL, teaching English as a second language at UCLA, becoming a professor at UFMG after that. 7 years later, she moved to Canada for a PhD in education at the University of Toronto. Back in Brazil, she did everything professors do: taught, researched, advised, wrote articles and books, participated with papers in conferences, sometimes was a speaker, signed cooperation agreements with universities abroad, served as a member in defense committees, editorial boards, and as a consultant. Retired since 2011, she continued active until last July, serving with FMG as a volunteer. She wanted to start her dream travels after that, but COVID-19 has made her stay put at home. So she's happy to accept invitations to speak or to put her knowledge at the service of others. We'd like to welcome you, Laura. Take the floor. Laura, your microphone, you're muted. You're still muted.
Can you hear me now? Yes?
Now, yes.
Right. Okay, thanks. All right, sorry about that. Okay, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, well, it's a great pleasure. I cannot thank Diogenes enough for the opportunity. I have always wanted to talk about emotions because I think that emotions are what run our lives. We all like, where we are all driven by emotions. And when he invited me, I kindly accepted because I know that as teachers nowadays, they have all been afraid to become teachers. And the reason why they have been afraid to become teachers is because the context for teaching is really, really challenging. And in addition to that, nowadays there's a lot of violence. And so it's quite explainable and understandable that teachers wouldn't want to become teachers, or that they would be afraid to be teachers. Yet at the same time, it's true that many teachers and most teachers are very happy to be teachers. So it's kind of a strange that although there's this idea that the profession is so challenging that people can be so happy. And so I hope that by sharing some of the things that I've learned about emotion and how I got into this, into thinking that it is through relationships in the classrooms that one is best at becoming a good teacher and becoming successful as a teacher. Okay, so that's it. So can I have the first slide? So Eros in Education and in Teachers' Lives is my my title. And let me ask you to go into the next slide, Lais, please. Okay, so when Diogenes asked me to talk about emotion, I eagerly accepted. And then a couple of weeks later, he said, can you give me a title? And I didn't know about the title. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. But when he asked me for a title, the title struck me, you know, like lightning. And it was Eros in Education. But that is not a very creative title because I duplicated the title of a paper written in 1954, and I added Eros in Education and in Teachers' Lives. So, and this article was very, very important to me. In fact, I still have the Xerox copy that I read in the 1990s. And what struck me as fantastic about this article was that it was written in 1954, and I was reading it in the 90s, and I kept telling myself, how could it be that an article written in 1954, it's been 40 years, and what's written here, it's still not practiced in classrooms. And that really kept me. And this article, I have remembered it, and I'm reminded of it. And it's a seminal paper that it's part of my life, really. And so I'd like to share some of it with you this afternoon. And one of the things that strike me the most, and I think that that's one of the reasons why we have been having problems with understanding and doing education, is because in this paper, the author refers to liberal education, and he says that liberal education, it's an education that is directed towards developing in students a sense of independence, and a sense of independence of dogma, of preconceptions, of prejudice, to become critical thinkers and to act, okay, and action. So it's not only to be an independent thinker, but also to be active in doing things, active in the community, active towards service to others, active in research, and active in changing one's environment. And he starts by saying that in order for education to fulfill its purpose, one of the ways to get there is through discussion. And discussion is an opportunity to experience the understanding of whatever topic or whatever it is that you're learning. But it's through discussion that you do that. You do not really master, it's not only facts and truths that education is all about, but really understanding, coming to understand a topic, mastering that topic, and through that experience of discussion, develop one's thinking and one's communication. Okay, so let's move into the next one. Next slide. Okay, so the article was written by Joseph Schwab in 1954, and he addresses that idea that for teachers to do a good job in the classroom, they have to value or start to establish a teaching relationship, a good teacher-student relationship. And that teacher-student relationship starts with noticing the student, being aware of who the student is. It's not just going into the classroom to teach a class or to teach a lesson and open your books and blah, 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 blah. It's pretty much acknowledging who the students are, taking time to know the students, what their lives are all about, what they want, so that you can address them and in a way talk to them and really know them, okay? And when teachers establish that relationship, or when they are trying to start that relationship, it's obviously that the teacher is the person that is the most powerful in the classroom. It's the teacher, right? But this power is in the student's idea. Oops, sorry. Are you there? My cell fell. Sorry about that. Are you listening? Yep.
Yes.
You guys listening to me? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. And so what happens is that the teacher has the student in his hands in this situation, in the situation of controlling the class. And so while the teacher is trying to establish this relationship, it's natural that the student, may be provocative, or students may be provocative in the plural, right? And they may test the teacher. and that testing behavior of the student should not be interpreted as some defiance, but as pretty much as an opportunity that the teacher has to show the student what he's there for, right? And so the teacher, and this is Schwab's idea, right? But I kind of uh, take it, accept it, and defend it, that somehow the teacher has to develop a therapist kind of persona to deal with these provocations, to deal with this testing behavior, and understand that what the student wants is to to have a feeling that the teacher is worth his attention, right? So he suggests that for this relationship to be um, fostered, to be promoted, he suggests that the chairs should be put in an oval. And those who were my students know that I always begin a class by asking all my students to change the chairs into an oval or a circle. And I call that trying to establish a learning community. Okay, that's not Schwab, that's me. A learning community. And so if we're all there, just like in a circle, or when you are camping with people and everybody makes a circle and people start sharing stories, that's the idea. The idea is to, all of us we are learning beings. Human beings are learning beings. And so definitely what we want is to make students share that love for learning. And so chairs in oval is a possibility. Another way of transforming education, teaching into education, and not really teaching a lesson, is also challenging materials. But challenging materials not only for the student, but challenging materials for the teacher. The teacher has to be challenged to research, to learn more about the topic, okay? And so with that, obviously, at some point, there will be a moment where students and teacher will like each other and respect will emerge. And with liking and respect, the idea of becoming a teacher moves into that of being an educator, okay? And pode mudar o slide, Laís. Another guy who has had an impact on me in this idea of understanding emotion in the classroom, and this is still in the 90s, is Jim Garrison. And he wrote an article called Dewey, Eros, and Education. So you see that Eros and education is a recurrent topic in the field. And he looks and he presents Eros not as love and sexual drive, but pretty much Eros as humans' creative force. And because of looking at Eros as a creative force, he claims that education should promote a love of wisdom. A love of wisdom, not wisdom as, again, I've mentioned this before, not as truth and facts and figures and formulas and structures, whatever, but wisdom as a desired future, which our desires may help bring into existence. And so what Dewey, and he draws, and because of that, he brings us to Dewey, and he reminds us that Dewey sees humans as participants in an unfinished universe. And because we are humans in an unfinished universe, we can use this creative force, our Eros, to relinquish imagination. So imagination is something that has to be present in the classroom. If there is no imagination, there's no room for the creative force to expand or to manifest itself. So imagination releases the possibilities beneath what's out there. So, for example, you go into a classroom, you find limitations in the classroom. What do? You keep things as they are, or you try to change them. That's the idea, okay? So it's impossible, okay, if you don't have imagination, if you do not use your Eros as your creative force to change anything, okay? So he looks, he argues for education as an endeavor that, in addition to that of what we have in Brazil, very much in most schools, which is the idea of education for a profession to join the market or whatever, is education of the human Eros, as activating our creative action, okay, for an education that socializes imagination, all right? Ok, pode passar o slide. Okay, so now we go into Hull's contribution. And this contribution, we're getting close to 2020. This contribution is something that I found while I was doing the research for preparing this presentation. She is an author that talks about passions, and that's something interesting because she says that passions are important to learning experiences. And passion in the sense of students falling in love with their teachers and the vice versa happening, teachers falling in love with their students. And though something that could be seen as a taboo, she actually says that the reason why passion is important is because our students seem to be bored. They seem to give signs of sleep of desire. Okay, they're apathetic. They do not feel anything. There's nothing that motivates them, right? And so she says that when a professor is able to nurture the construction of a desiring self, a self that desires, of somebody that's seeking goals, that's seeking goods and ends, that's when the student can find his love of wisdom, right? If he doesn't, which is in the previous slide, if he does not have that desiring self, there's no identity. He's pretty much kind of driven by the world and not by himself, okay? So he comes to an end and he says, well, if your student comes to you and says that he's in love with you, I don't know if that has ever happened to you, has happened to me, and at different times, and I have responded differently. And I've also fallen in love with some students, although after reading this article, I realized that my falling in love with my students is that I've fallen in love with their desire to learn. Because when students fall in love with their teachers, they are not falling in love with the teacher itself, but it's not that thing also of transference that you are falling in, that your student is falling in love because he longs for a mother or a father or whatever, or an adult. He's transferring that. No, that's not that. The idea is that the student falls in love with the teacher because he loves the teacher's passion for what he's teaching, and he wants to share that. And so when a teacher also falls in love with a student, normally he falls in love or she falls in love with his desire to learn. And that's something nice, right? Anyway, okay, outro slide. Okay, so leaving the theoretical part, those of you who know a little bit of my work know that I'm always trying to link theory and practice. And let's go to the practical side. Barcelos and da Silva published in 2015 an article on beliefs, emotions, and identity. And I'm leaving the beliefs part of the article aside and focusing only on the emotion. And pretty much they reinforce that emotions are powerful because they construct our identity and our resistance. Because if we know who we are and we know how we react and we learn how to react to things, and we can resist even the most difficult situations because we have learned to deal with our emotions, right? So teaching in this article, they report on 11 teachers who shared their emotions and their beliefs about teaching in public schools, in regular schools. And they all shared this idea that the teaching context was difficult, that teaching English had few hours, and they all felt that there was lack of resources and there was violence in school, and they all had problems with that. And what I did is I clipped 3 excerpts that are on the article, and I want to share with you so that you can compare the 3 excerpts. I don't know if I can read because in this... Ok, então, são muitas dificuldades assim que a gente encontra, mas a principal é a desmotivação dos alunos com relação à língua. Aí vai desmotivando a gente, né? Mas o que mais me desmotiva é os alunos, a indisciplina e a falta de motivação com relação à língua. Esse é uma professora. Outra professora diz assim: eu tenho muito o lado emocional, eu gosto muito dos meus alunos, acho que isso ajuda muito. Eu olho para as carinhas deles e eu me apaixono por eles, por causa do jeitinho deles, sabe? Eu gosto dessa lida pessoal com eles, isso, eu gosto do meu trabalho. É muito desgastante, uma terceira professora, o trabalho. O pior é isso, desgasta demais. Chega o fim de semana, você está cansada, desgastada, nossa, faz mal à saúde. Por isso, eu estou pensando, não quero mais trabalhar em sala de aula regular. So, if you are critical enough, you can see that there's something there that 2 of these teachers share and 1 does not. So there's a lot of insatisfaction in 2 of these excerpts, the first excerpt and the third excerpt. And the second excerpt is the excerpt that this teacher reveals that she has a relationship with her students. She likes them, she looks at them, they are there, and she acknowledges them. The other 2 excerpts talk about the teaching situation, but it's so abstract, there's nobody there, there's no students. Or if there are students, they are lumped into the category of unmotivated students, okay? That's for the first one. But for the second one, the third one, sorry, for the third one, there's not even students in her in her excerpt. She doesn't really refer to them. So it's like she's teaching in a void of students, right? And so this is only to make you reflect, okay? I'm about to finish. So hopefully we'll have time to discuss. All right, próximo slide. Okay, Souza and Aragão in 2017 wrote an article on emotions, teachers' emotions and identity, okay? And basically they start out by saying that reason and emotions are intertwined in human actions. So every time we do something, when we ask somebody to explain why he did this or he did that, the person is going to start saying, okay, I punched him because he said something I didn't like. I felt totally enraged, and so that's why I punched him. So behind the action, there is an explanation, and behind the explanation, there's an emotion. So you will always find emotions in actions, okay? The same for love, okay? So I felt happy because, or I kissed him because he said something so nice. You see? So it's always, emotions are always there, okay? So in this article, they report about 2 future teachers, and these 2 future teachers, they, as teachers, they experienced fear, anxiety, frustration, and lack of confidence. But as trainees, okay, when they went to teach in a classroom, these are not teachers. I'm sorry, I think I forgot to say that these are trainees. Lucas is one of them. He oscillated from satisfied to eager to succeed and to frustrated, and he felt disrespected by the students when he was teaching, right? And so he eventually, they report in the article that eventually he gives up his future as a teacher. He says, well, I don't want to teach, which is how I started this presentation, referring to this as something very common. People giving up the thought or not even thinking about becoming teachers because they feel that there's violence and they're not going to be successful. But compare that with Moadia. Moadia is fearful and insecure as a student, but as a trainee as well. But through reflection, she engages in reflection. And so she develops a partnership with the students. And because of that, she develops more confidence, but she still fears violence. Okay, that's what they report. So you see, remember in the first slide when Schwab says that it is in education we need discussion in order to experience and understand what's going on, and we develop our thinking and we develop our communication, and that's what learning and education is all about. Well, she engaged in reflection, and reflection, it's a form of discussion. The only difference is that it's a discussion with yourself. You analyze what's happening to you and you act upon it. And well, she didn't give up the idea of being a teacher, which is good, but she fears violence. And of course she should fear violence. I fear violence. If I had to join a class, I fear violence. I feel being rejected. It doesn't matter how many years I've been teaching, I still fear all that because you don't know who you're going to find. But the idea is that through reflection, confidence, self-knowledge, and understanding emerged, okay? So we come up to our last slide now. Último slide. So I would like to leave you with questions. Where is your Eros? Okay. Where is it? It's in your class. Do you see yourself creating the possibility of living through moments in class and exercising an education that promotes imagination, an education that makes people think of what their goals are, think of who they are, what they want. Why are they there? You know, they are like you are. The people who are here today listening to these presentations, thank you. I have to thank you for taking your time to listen to me. And so it's an honor. And we have to acknowledge that students come to our class, they could be doing so many other things, especially nowadays with so many things in the world happening, you know, and so many media to have access to anything, right? So where's your Eros? Do you bring your Eros? And do you bring Eros, if not yours, Eros into your class? And I found this other author, Parker Palmer, who wrote a book, The Courage to Teach, I think. It's in the references. And he's the author of these 7 questions. And it reminded me of a book that I've read during my doctoral years, which is called Beginning with Ourselves. So the idea, this is a book written by Peter Diamond. And Peter Diamond says, no teacher can begin teaching if he doesn't begin with himself, asking himself some questions. And so Parker Palmer asks these questions that teachers should ask themselves all the time, not only before they start teaching, but they should always continuously keep on asking these questions. Does your life has meaning and purpose? If it doesn't, how can it have meaning and purpose for the student? Do you have gifts that the world wants and needs? Whom and what can you trust? Who do you trust? What do you trust? Do you have principles? Do you have values? Do you stick to these values? And who are the people that you trust? I trust Schwab. I trust Dewey. I trust Aragon. I trust many people. My former advisee, right? How do you deal with your own suffering and that of your family and friends? Because if you don't know how to deal with your own suffering, how can you deal with the suffering of others? How can you deal with the challenges in the classroom? How do you maintain hope? And this is, if my former student, now colleague, Andrea Santana, is watching, she's certainly going to be smiling now, because hope is her topic. And if we don't have hope for better days, better futures, it's difficult to think of education. Okay, so I hope that I have made my point clear. My point is that emotion should drive teachers' actions, should be in teachers' classrooms. There should be a happiness about being in class. There should be a feeling of, hi, I'm here. I've come. How has been the week that we didn't see each other? And you know, sharing a little bit of who we are and what we do. Because if we are candid, actually, if we are who we are, we show people that we're not afraid of our mistakes, we're not afraid of our doubts, we're not afraid of being human, because that's what being human is. It's not It's dealing with uncertainty every day, right? And if we can fill our classrooms with a feeling of honesty and truthfulness and candidness and being truly real, I'm sure things will go well, and everybody will be happy in the end. I hope. I've been very happy. Okay, so I desire this to all of you. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm so sorry for the problem with the computer, that you had to watch me in this, in the cell phone. Sorry about that. Okay, that's it.
Don't worry, Laura, it was great. Wow, it was really awesome listening to you bringing these issues for us. I really did not expect to be questioned like that. And when I saw the title of your talk, I did not imagine at the end you'd ask me how I deal with my suffering and how I keep hope. That's really challenging. And it's really important how much this interferes and influences our teaching, because we are human beings in a classroom trying to give something to our students, right? So before being teachers and educators, we are single persons, okay? There are 2 questions so far, and before reading the questions, I would like to just light out 3 parts of your talk that I really got these comments and ideas you brought. Therapist kind of persona. This is so very true, right? We teachers, we sometimes have to really get disposed, right? Especially when we have a opening relation with our students, we give them space and confidence for them to get closer. And emotions construct our identity. Oh, this is so like me. For those who know me a little bit, I'm so emotional. This is also so very true. And we need the courage to teach. We really need the courage to teach. Here goes the first question for you from Joima Barbosa. She asks you, Laura, how to encourage students to become teachers and professors of foreign languages amidst the devaluing of the teaching career.
Okay, I think that you only encourage students to become teachers when you develop an honest dialogue about the purpose of education. Why do you want to be, I mean, what would the world be without teachers? Okay, first question. Can we live without teachers? We cannot live without teachers. We are learning all the time. As I said, we are learning, we are built to learn. Our organism is a learning organism. So we are built to learn, and we are learning all our lives. And no, doesn't matter if you're 5 or 10 or 20 or 60. Sometimes people ask me, oh, do you feel now that you're over 60? Sometimes do you feel that you're more wisdom, that you have developed a wisdom? I the other day I was thinking about that. I'm thinking, I don't think that I've developed a wisdom. I think that what I've developed is a serenity more than anything, a serenity, but not wisdom. I still have doubts. I still don't know what to do. I still don't know how to react when somebody, what should I say? Keep my mouth shut, report, scream, whatever. So it's difficult. So how do you make a student want to become a teacher? you start a discussion about what education is all about these kind of thoughts about education. Is education making somebody fit for the market to become a professional? It's to make money. It's to be somebody that enjoys his life. You know that we live with very little. We don't need much to live. The rest is vanity. The rest is vanity. It's, if I have this big house, this is a dream. This is a dream come true. Okay. I have a dream house. It took me 25 years to build it, but I bought the piece of land in 1978. I started building in 2003. It took me 25 years to have the money, but it was a dream and I wanted it. And so I realized it. Now I have it. It's so big. I'm kind of going, why did I have to have such a big house? I don't want it anymore. You see, so so you have to start a discussion. You have to start a discussion about what it means to be educated, what it means to be a teacher. Who were the teachers that influenced you? Didn't you have teachers that influenced you? I'm sure everybody had a teacher that influenced you. I had a teacher that influenced me. It was a short guy, probably as short as I am, because I'm only 156 meters tall. Okay, so he was short, but he would have us, we were teenagers, hormones popping up like that, but he would have us quiet, giving a history class, not math, history. People sometimes, my son used to say to me, oh, history is so boring. I said, no, history is great, because I loved history. As I loved literature. I had a great, in fact, I fell in love with obviously I fell in love with my literature teacher, right? So that happens, but if you don't have the discussion, if you do not open a discussion, and a discussion means having people think about it, reflect upon it, have a discussion with themselves, ask them questions, then it's difficult. It has to come, it has to come from you. You don't, I kind of became a teacher because my mom said, why don't you come back from, I spent 4 years in the United States, and my mom said, there's a teacher training at #1. Why don't you go? I think she wanted me out of the house, to be very honest. I was 20 years old, 19. And so why don't you go get a job, do something? And so I went and I took a teacher training. In 2 weeks, I was teaching. I didn't know anything about teaching. I knew a method. I cried every night when my students didn't understand. I did all the steps that they told me that I should do, and it didn't work. And it has taken me a lifetime to become a teacher. You don't become a teacher because you start in a classroom. You become a teacher over years. And so it has to be something that it's discussed and that people embrace it. And if they embrace it, they will do it, because they won't give up, because they know what it takes. They know the challenges. They know that it's violent. They know that it's difficult. They know that the material does not work, that there's no perfect material. They know the students, they will have all kinds of students, but they have to know everything. You should not hide from anybody what they're going to find. That's my thought. Okay, there's another question, right? I could speak forever if you let me.
Yes, and I could hear you forever. Oh, the more you like, the more we think.
Exactly.
There is another question here from Tradufan. He or she asks, which strategies can teachers use to enhance students' motivation?
I hate strategies. Oh my God. What can you enhance? Well, know your student. Know your student. Ask him what he wants, what he likes. You don't, you know, if you grab a book and you start reading and the book doesn't grab you in the first page, you leave the book, right? Same with classrooms. Same with classes. If the first class doesn't grab you there, if you don't have somebody that from the first day kind of seduces you, and that's why it's Eros, okay? Because it's you have to seduce your student. You have to make him want to learn. But how do you make that? You have to know your student. How do you seduce somebody, right? You have to know what that person likes, how that person thinks, what this person does. I don't know about strategies. There's many strategies. There's books written about strategies. But my strategy is knowing my student. You know what I do every day? My first class, I spend the whole class, when I used to teach, right? Because I don't teach anymore. But when I used to teach, I spent my first 50 minutes of class playing games, asking students to put their names on badges because I wanted to know their names. Asking students, I would throw balls and I would ask them to tell their names, and I would go around and I would make people know each other. That's a strategy for starting to know the people you have in class. Because if you know the people you have in class, you certainly will be able to develop a relationship with them. That's a strategy to motivate, is to you know what I thought about now, why I smiled, because I was reminded of the Little Prince, okay, the raposa of the Little Prince, who says you have to cativar, you have to grab that student of yours, you know, make him like you. If even if you start playing the fool a little bit, you know, to begin with, but there is no, it's not a strategy. It's something that is constructed over time. It's one day after the other, is paying attention to what's going on in class. And when you pay attention to what's going on in class, if you see that somebody is, you know, looking, you know, at the cellular phone, if students are on cell phones nowadays, if you see them, you know, why are you, you know, why are you so much on the cell phone? What's there on the cell phone? What is so important? Show your student that you observe him, that you notice him, that he is important to you. Once I had a student, I was teaching a class, and I had a student, and this student didn't show up, and she was my most provocative student. And she didn't show up for a class. She didn't show up for a second class. She didn't show up for a third class. And when she didn't show up for the fourth class, I decided to call her, because that was a sign that something was wrong. And she came back to class, and she said that she had never had a teacher who had called her to find out what was going on. But I wanted to know if she had dropped my class because she didn't like my class, or because she had a problem. If she told me she didn't like my class, I wanted to know why. And that's why I called her. Because we have to know that, you know, there's a saying that we have to love our enemies, because our enemies are our best teachers, because they show us what we don't have, what our imperfections are. So we have to pay attention to those who do not like us, because those who do not like us can teach us. And so it's not really a strategy. That's why I don't like the word strategy. I'm sorry if I did not answer your question more objectively.
I believe you did. We have very nice comments here, Laura, about your talk, about your answers. I'd like to read too from Tradufan. He or she says, getting to know our students, it seems perfect to me, reasonable and tactful. And Silvia Mello says, when we know our students, we are able to use the best way to help him or her.
Exactly. I agree.
I also agree. Well, we have no other questions. Let's see everyone who is here. If someone still wants to ask anything else to Laura or make any other comment. If we don't have Diogenes, I believe you can hear us. We could end. Yeah, we could get to. You are mute.
Yes, I am. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, thank you very much, Laura, for this nice talk. It was very provocative, and I was very happy to listen to you. I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment, and maybe you can react to that. When I edited the book Inglês em Escola Pública Não Funciona, uma questão múltiplos lugares, I invited you to write a chapter for the book. And then you denied the first time. You said, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm sick and tired of listening to people talk negatively about, English lessons. And then I looked back to you and said, Laura, it's a question. It's not a statement. And then you accepted to write the chapter. It was a very, very nice chapter. Could you, I know it doesn't have anything to do with the topic right now, but would you like to make a comment about this or not? If not, that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely, I can make a comment on it. You see, Diogenes, when it's not that I was kind of sick and tired, it's just I just dislike the negativity. You see,
Sure. Yeah.
I tend to be an optimistic person most of the time, a hopeful person most of the time. I don't think teachers are living in the best times. Christina is saying, thanks for this motivating talk in scary times. I can read her comment here. These are really scary times. I feel emotional now because I kind of feel if I were 20 or 20 something starting my career, I'd be dead terrified to get into a classroom with all the rumors of violence and hatred and impatience and lack of peace. Okay, this unrest, everybody seems to be at the edge of their skin. Okay, it's like everybody has a chip on their shoulder. Whatever happens, everybody's kind of like bursting into whatever. So it's difficult. So at that time, I said I wouldn't cooperate with a book that had a title without a question mark because it was an affirmative. At the time you sent me, it was an affirmative. There wasn't a question mark. And so this idea that things don't work, they don't work because there's very few people who try to make it work, to be very honest. It's not easy to be a teacher. To make things work takes time, takes effort, takes reasoning. takes time. You have to think, who are my students? What are they? Where are they from? What do they bring to the classroom? How can I make this challenging? I used to have students who um, who I gave classes at night. They worked all day. Sometimes they traveled 2 hours, 3 hours to be in class with me. I couldn't go into the class and say, okay, guys, open the books on page, blah, 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 blah. Let's fill in the blanks and let's do the exercises. Please give me a break. These people have been working for 8 hours. They want something more. They don't want a show. They do not want a teacher. I'm totally against the teacher that thinks that teachers that are like Silvio Santos or or Luciano Huck, or think of these personalities that are effervescent personalities. No, they want somebody real. Okay, it's time, a little bit of fun, a little bit of seriousness, a little bit of relaxation. You have 50 minutes. Sometimes I think that we don't have 50 minutes. We have 20 minutes. Because the first 20 minutes, you kind of spend them getting to know what they did last week, if they had a good weekend, if they did the work that they were supposed to do, if they read the book or they read the article or whatever. And then you start your class. And 20 minutes have passed. And then you have 20 minutes. Those are your 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes. So they have to be good. They have to be valuable. Because the last 20 minutes, they are tired. They've been with you for 40 minutes already, or 50 minutes, or whatever. And so they are tired. So they want to relax. And so the last minutes have to be relaxing. It can't be too much all the time. Okay, so you have to make them, work, right?
Okay. All right. Very good. That was great. But now let me ask you, I wanted
Thank
to
you.
provoke you a little bit more. Have you ever received any criticism for being like this, so human in your classroom, for being so nice? Have you been criticized?
No,
No, never
no,
been criticized by the
no,
members of the academia.
not from my, not from my students, not
Mm,
from
I
my
know, but
students. Of course,
uh yeah,
I've had students who have left the classroom, who have been very disrespectful
mm,
because they didn't get it,
I
you
see.
know. And when you start poking people, because when you start calling people to make them think, not everybody's ready for that,
Right.
right? And so you get people that are disrespectful. I had a student who tore something in my face and threw it in front of the class. I had people, you name it, 40 years teaching, you name it. I had everything. I had people crying. I had blind people in my classroom. I had people who did not know how to behave properly in the classroom. They had to be taught how to behave properly, that they had to wait until they had to talk. They had to wait. And so you have everything. And so, what do you think? I had criticism. I think I had criticisms, yes, because as I said, it's impossible to be liked by everybody, right?
Sure.
But and certainly I disturb people,
Sure.
especially when I'm calling for their turn, okay? Because as in every relationship, there's two. In a classroom, there's the teacher, the lonely one, and the students, the majority. So you have to learn how to read the majority, and you have to adapt, and you have to find a way to please everyone. Sometimes you have to shout. Sometimes you have to say, enough. No, not this. I once had a conflict between a black student and a Chinese student in class. And so there was conflict there, and I had to moderate that. So not easy, not an easy situation, but with discussion, genuine, we're here for something. What do you want? Do you want a diploma? Is that all you want? You want your diploma? Okay with me. I give you presents. You come out. The world will take care of you. Not my problem. But make a decision. I'm not playing here. This is my job. That's what I like to do. And some people here want to pay attention. Some people here want to do things. You don't, go somewhere else. When you're dealing with adults, not the same when you're dealing with children, not the same when you're dealing with adolescents. But you have to find a way. You have to talk to parents. You have to find a way, right?
Mm-hmm. That's very good, very interesting. I guess we could go on forever, because this is a
Yes,
nice topic.
definitely.
Unfortunately, we're gonna have to stop right now. So I'd like, unless anybody else has a question, I don't know, as a result of our conversation right now at the end of the lecture. Anybody?
Yeah, we have to find a way. Exactly. Jocely said, we have to find a way. Laura's passionate words about education seem so rare among the so-called post-human theories, algorithms, big data, Laura. Thanks again. True. But you see, Cristina, I do not see you, but you see me. You see, Cristina, we live in a world of all of that, post-human theories, bots, algorithms, big data, all over, exactly what you say. But in the end, it's this. What really, really makes the world go round is not money. Money makes the world go round. Yes, economy. The economy makes the world go round. But what makes really the world go round is the people who feed the economy. And the people who feed the economy are working class people. And these working class people are the people that are struggling. They are not really enjoying everything that the economy is providing or the technology is providing. They're struggling. They're struggling. And the only way that they can find force to go on, strength to go on, is through good relationships. That's what keeps them alive. Relationships, love, emotions, fun. That's what keeps people doing their thing. Because if they're not, they kill themselves. And some people actually do that. They actually kill themselves.
Sure.
Which is sad.
That's true. That's true.
But true.
Okay.
Thank you, Cristina, for your comment. Thank you.
Anybody else? Another comment or another question? If not, I'd like to ask into, okay, what is it? Laura always
Rodrigo!
Oh, Rodrigo,
You are here!
Welcome, Rodrigo. Great.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Rodrigo. Beijo para você, amore. Love you to all your. He's one of the students I fell in love with. I have to confess.
And he works on this topic too, right? Emotion, doesn't he?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
his
I
topic.
participate.
I'm cheating from him.
Okay, well, yeah, I participate in his banca progressão last week, progressão da carreira, and of course we mentioned your name too, and your name was there in this paper. He cited you. Okay, so thank you again, Laura. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Jocely, for moderating this lecture, and I hope that you guys have signed out the list, the form there. Otherwise, you want to receive your certificate, so make sure that you fill out the form. And our next lecture is going to be on the 8th. It's not going to be on a Monday because Monday is a holiday. So it's going to be on Tuesday, the 8th of September. And it's going to be delivered by Daniela Corsioli. She works at the Universidade Federal do Tocantins. And her topic is going to be language, performativity, and teacher formation. Okay, so let's finish right now, and I hope that you guys can come back next week for another lecture. Thank you very much, and thank you, Naim.
Diógenes.
Jason.
Diógenes, eu queria te agradecer imenso, tá bem? Ok?
Ok, prazer.
Um beijo enorme para você. Muito obrigada.
Beijinho
Jocely,
também.
beijinho. Jocely, beijão para você. Obrigada.
Okay.
Boa noite a todos. Tchau, tchau, gente. Vou esperar vocês desligarem. Tchau.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Tá bom, tchau, tchau. Tchau, Laís, obrigada. Tchau, Jason. Tchau.
Tchau, tchau.